Now, 4:30. Time for our next speaker, María Victoria Tuya. I must say, I'm so happy to present her because many years ago, she probably doesn't remember because she was very young then. No, she's still young, but she was younger then. She presented me on a conference, and now this reciprocity, again, I appreciate it. She was already with us 2 years ago at the AATI conference in 2021, right?
Yes.
Also, thanks to the Zoom, and also probably next year, hopefully next year, we'll have her with us. We'll have her with us here in Israel at the next conference. And again, a short bio, because if I have to read everything about her, it will take most of the lecture.
Thank you.
She's a certified sworn translator since 1989 and a conference interpreter since 1996. Freelancer for 30 years, specialized in legal, medical translation and technology, specialist in scientific and technical translation, university professor on information technology for translators and interpreters, and legal English. It's at the UBA, right? The Universidad de Buenos Aires.
No, UMSA.
The UMSA, sorry, Universidad del Museo Social in Argentina, sorry.
It's okay.
Professor on translation of medical texts, legal expert working in procedural, civil, commercial, and criminal courts at Buenos Aires Judicial Power, and certified member of the Colegio de Traductores Públicos in Buenos Aires since 1990, and a member of the AATI since 1994. So today's topic is bioethics, an introduction to bioethics 101.
Yes.
María Victoria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this presentation. And thank you, the Israel Translator Association, for the invitation. To you, especially you, thank you very much. It's an honor and a pleasure being here with colleagues and trying to speak a little bit about this. I will turn off the camera for bits because the signal appears to be very weak today. Well, we are in Argentina, so I will turn on the camera in a few moments. Okay. Why did I choose this topic? Because in medical texts, and especially clinical trial, that is what I translate most, ethics and bioethics is very intimately related. So before talking about what is bioethics, let me speak about, I'll give you a brief introduction. I will share screen. Okay. Is it in properly? Yes? Okay.
Press F5 for presentation mode.
Yeah. That's correct. Okay. So, Bioethics 101. A brief introduction. We have great advances in scientific and technological fields, and mostly a series of dilemmas that appear to light and need to start making morally, and this is important, morally complex decisions. We are witness of a social cultural context that is very different from other contexts in the past, and it makes necessary to incorporate this context in a professional training. Also, the research in the field of health has had an exceptional growth in recent years. And there have been very interest that has been put into this scene, in many cases attributable to the lack of knowledge on this subject. Yes, okay. If we speak about bioethics from the point of view of etymology, it is a Greek word, and we have bios, that means life, and ethos, that means moral nature or behavior. But we have others concepts. Bioethics is commonly understood to refer to the ethical implications and applications of health-related life sciences. And we can see here again dilemmas. Dilemmas may arise for the basic scientist, any science, who wants to develop, for example, embryos to better study fetal development, for example. But he or she is not sure how real the embryos can be without running into moral limits. Ethics and bioethics has to do with this. For example, in clinical trials, once treatments or drugs are used in clinical trials involving human subjects, there appear a lot of challenges. For example, from the point of view of the informed consent, for the protection of these vulnerable, because that's a word, research participants to guarantee their participation. Eventually, some of these approaches are put into practice where providers or patients or families struggles to look for what is the best aligned to balance risks and benefits for the treatments of these patients. We have other definitions of bioethics. François Malher defined bioethics as the study of the norms that should govern our action in the field of man's technical intervention on his own life. Another author says, Pierre Dejam, the normative science of acceptable human behavior in the domain of life and death. Livia Lopez Pontigo says, systematic study of human behavior in the area of human sciences and healthcare, insofar as this behavior is examined in the light of moral values and principles. So, bioethics as such was coined in 1927 by Fritz Yards in an article about bioethical imperative regarding the use of animals and plants in scientific research. But we are talking about the beginning of the 20th century. If we are talking about bioethics in this time, we have that the first person that coined the word bioethics as we know today was Van Rysel-Potter in 1971. Okay. This author proposes the term bioethics, taking into account several ingredients for achieving a new wisdom, that is, the biological knowledge and human values. He believes that human ethics cannot be separated for an understanding of ecology on its broader sense, and there is a need for ethics of the earth, of the wildlife, of the environment, of population, etc. A new discipline combines, so, biological knowledge with the knowledge of human value system. Bioethics is a multidisciplinary field that combines philosophy, theology, history, and law, together with medicine, nursing, health policy, and medical humanities. And all these subjects has to do with bioethics, clinical decision-making, controversial new research, the implication of emerging technologies, global concern, and public policy. We are going to develop all these matters, all these subjects in a few minutes. Okay, but there is an institutionalization of bioethics and began in the United States in the late of the 1960s decade. In two centers. Astin Center in New York in 1969, and Kennedy Institute in Washington in 1971. So we have theory and concepts at the beginning of the 20th century that was related to plants mostly, and then we have other concerns that appear, and bioethics was taken into consideration about human beings. It was an institutionalization of bioethics and in these centers. Okay, there are two ways of conceiving bioethics. Maybe in a welfare or social context or field, and regarding research. The basic symbols are common to both conceptions. We have an evolution of bioethics from the historic point of view and from any matter point of view. So we have theories of bioethics, utilitarian current, deontological current, discourse ethics, and principalist ethics. And then we are going to talk a bit about the Belmont report. Okay, as regards utilitarian current, utilitarianism, as we all know, is the most ancient of the ethic doctrines today. Its birth is located in Greece in the time of Epicurus, at a time of social political crisis. It was at the end of the 4th century BC. The modern question here that identifies this theory is, what must a man has to do to be happy? That is, we have in the 20th century a lot of authors that consider this current of thought. As regards the ontology current, for Kant, and this take into account that I talk about recently that is physicians are not the only person related to bioethics, but philosophers, psychiatrists, psychologists, etc. For Kant, the ontology was in itself, or is in itself, a science of duties or categorical imperatives, in which it is not a science, in which is not the end of the matter, but the intentionality of the act is what it is important, independently of the material consequences. For Kant, any man or woman possesses the capacity to distinguish moral good or evil. And correct moral action for Kant is when one makes use of that capacity to do good, regardless of the consequences. As far as discourse claims came to consider its root in the tradition of Socratic dialogue and agrees with a normative ethics. It also takes about satisfying needs and interests. As regards principalism or principalist ethics, is an applied ethics, and this is an approach to the examination of moral dilemmas. Once again, moral dilemmas. That it's based upon the application of certain ethical principles. This approach to ethical making or decision making has been adopted in many professional fields. Rather than engaging in an abstract debate, a useless debate about what is the best of the or not the best appropriate approach to the normative level, the purpose of principalism is to offer a practical method of dealing with the real world ethical dilemmas. The origins of principalism is the decade of the 1970s. Okay, this has to do with the Belmont report. This is a report, this is the complete name, but everybody knows as Belmont report. Was written by a commission, the name is there you have at the end, the National Commission for the Protection of Human Subjects of Biomedical and Behavioral Research. This commission was created as a result of an act in 1974, and the purpose was to identify the basic ethical principles that should underline the conduct of biomedical and behavioral research involving human subjects. As I said, this report summarizes ethical principles and guidelines. It was presented in its national commission, and then there was a second approach that was introduced by two American authors, Tom Deschamps and James Childress. They wrote a book about principles of biomedical ethics in 1979, and stated in that book that there were four principles that were the heart of moral reasoning in healthcare: respect for autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. As regards the opinion on Beauchamp and Childress, these four principles are part of a common morality. Okay. Principle of autonomy, or is also known as respect for persons. Okay. It includes two basic ethical convictions. First of all, individuals, human beings, should be treated as autonomous persons, that is, persons capable of deliberating about their personal goals and acting on the basis of deliberation. And secondly, because of that autonomous character, individuals must have a special protection, and they are entitled to claim that protection. The second principle is the principle of beneficence. It comprises, this principle, a set of rules that specify benefits and weigh those benefits against risk and costs. And this has to do specifically with clinical trials. This principle in particular has two complementary rules. The rule is not to harm and to maximize possible benefits and minimize possible harm. Also, principle of non-maleficence is this intentional refraining from actions that may cause harm or harms other people. This principle is sometimes included in the principle of beneficence. And then we have the principle of justice. It is the specific form of distributed justice, and it is understood as the distribution of the risk and all burdens on one hand, and the benefits on the other hand. What are the questions that that are related to this principle? What is owed to the research subjects during the research? What is owed to the research subjects when the research ends? And what is owed to the community or country in which this research is conducted when the research ends? Okay, briefly, research on human beings, we have the first period from the origins of history until the beginning of the 20th century. The physician was a technician. He does not only research, he only treats. And there was a classic experiment. Any person undergoes research that can bring no benefits, only harm. Then we have a second period that is from the beginning of the 20th century to 1947. That includes modern experiment. There were clinical research designed according to the rules of descriptive and sampling statistics. Only the experimental can be justified as clinical. Incidental learning needs to be controlled. And there was a new ethical criterion, principle of autonomy of the experimental subjects. Then we have the third period that can go from 1947 to the present time. And we have regulated clinical research and new ethics about human experimentation, because there appears the Belmont Report, there appears the Declaration of Helsinki, and the guidelines of SCIONS. Sometimes, there are people who speaks about a fourth period with new ethics of responsibility, but not every author agree with this. As regards the conceptual evolution, we have classic ethics for advocates as regards the medical point of view, biomedical research ethics related to Nuremberg Code from the point of view of legal law. Then we have bioethics in biomedical research, Helsinki Declaration, SCIONS, that is the Council for International Organization of Medical Science, that consider the drug as a medical social good. And then we have bioethics in health research with human beings, with PHO as a proposal and interdisciplinary work. But what is research ethics? We can define, if we take into account, its field of action. And research ethics must guarantee the protection of the rights of individuals and social groups that participate in scientific research. And physicians and research participants, I mean, physicians, nurses, etc., must ensure the scientific validity and the ethical and social justification of these research projects. What makes research ethical so the requirements respond to principles or to values that are universally recognized. And all these participants must comply with regulations and ethics committee capable of applying these guidelines. And therefore, there appears the ethics committee. What is an ethics committee? An ethics committee is the agent responsible for ensuring that the evaluation process is correctly directed and consider all the risks and take account all the benefits. We must do a distinction between advisory or regulatory committees, medical association committees, medical or hospital ethics committee, and research ethics committee. In these committees, there are members or agents, the researcher who has, she or he, who must know perfectly the field, laboratories or sponsors with innovation projects and patients or subjects recruited. What are the actions involved? They must regulate or they must advise on the development of the research. They must weigh risks, benefits, and harms, and also liability, fault, or diligence in the research. And this is very important. If, for example, as I translate clinical trials, if there is any adverse event, the sponsors at the first time and then the committee wait if this adverse event is serious or not serious. And depending on that evaluation, they inform that the clinical trial must not go on because that involves seriously risk for the patient. Okay. As regards research or biomedical research, we are in a scenario that have had many modifications. As regards Argentina, there have been modifications to the Civil and Commercial Code that was modified in 2017. For example, sections 17, 19, 58, and 59. As regards this section 17, that mentions rights of the human being, and it says that the rights over the human being, the human body, do not have any economic value, but an affective, therapeutic, scientific, humanitarian, or social value. As regards section 19, that was very discussed, that mentioned the beginning of the existence of the human being. According to this section, the human being, the person, begins with the conceptions in the mother womb. And in the case of assisted human reproduction techniques, the human being begins with the implantation of the embryo in the woman, without prejudice of any provisions of a special law for the protection of the unimplanted embryo. I will speak briefly about the abortion. That was a law that was, it has a year and a half from its publication. So in Argentina, there is an abortion law. Then about section 58, it talks about human health research. And it mentions that this research must be safe and must have efficacy, and must be proven human beings with all the precautions. There appears the figure of the informed consent. That is a process, and it is embodied in a form that takes into consideration many variables. This medical research must not involve for the participant risk and discomfort, and must not be disproportionate to the benefits, must assure the participant the medical care, the pertinent medical care, and must have the prior approval of a research ethic evaluation committee. And you have here the importance for a research committee. And as regards the last one, the section 59, it mentions about informed consent and all medical acts and health research. Okay, which are the requirements to know if research is ethical? First of all, value. It must have social, scientific, or clinical significance. It must lead to improvements in health of population. It has a responsible use of limited resources and must avoid exploitation. The second requirement is scientific validity. That is very important. It must have any valuable research. Bad science is not ethical. Then we have methodology. Methodology must include clear scientific objective. It must be designed, this study must be designed with accepted principles, methods, and practices, be able to test the objective, and be able to be conducted. As regards subject, it is called the person, the human being that takes part in medical research. It is called like that, and then one after the screening, that is another process, sorry, it is called participant or patient. As regards subjects, they must have a fair selection. And everybody must have the opportunity, voluntary, of course, to have the opportunity to participate. Another requirement that is very important, there must be a favorable ratio, risk-benefit ratio. There must have potential risk, and these risks must be minimized, and the benefit must be maximized. And it has to do with, for example, if it is medical research involving a drug, How is going to be administered? Is it safe? It has a monitoring, appropriate monitoring, and the measurement of the effects. Which techniques are going to be used? Which methods are going to be used to collect the adverse effects? What happens if there is any complication? And the reporting of adverse reaction. Then we have an independent evaluation, and it has to do with committees. Carry this evaluation, this independent, and it is very important, this independent evaluation must carry out independently from the center. And finally, respect for involved subjects. All subjects may change his mind. It's very common that any patient decides not to go on with the medical research, and this has to be reported and is perfectly accepted. Okay, what about bioethical issues in healthcare management? Now are the topics that now in this century we have to attend. As I said at the beginning, as medical technology advances very rapidly, there appears other concerns. So professionals, healthcare professionals, must examine these issues, these biological issues. So we, or the person who wants to conduct any medical research must ask, what is the right thing to do? Is it worthwhile? What are our obligations to one another? Who is responsible to whom? What is the appropriate response to this moral dilemma about euthanasia, eugenics, end-of-life care, organ donation? On what moral grounds are such claims made? I'm on time, right, Elisa?
Yes, 5 more minutes. And
Okay. So, what about Latin America? Because all the authors I'm going to show you some authors in speaking English countries. What happens in Latin America? I said before, then bioethics appeared in the United States in the 1960 decade. Okay, in Latin America, bioethics appeared in 1990s. and was consolidated as an academic discipline in many Latin American countries. Before telling this, let me tell you an anecdote. I attended all the subjects for my master's degree in bioethics. I'm writing, in fact, my thesis now. And in one of the subjects that has to do with these subjects, the professor told us about this story. There was a married couple for many years, and they decided to thaw eggs, to freeze eggs for an eventual and possible embryo implant. Regretfully, this married couple separated, divorced, and each one make their own life again. She decided that she wanted to be mother with a new couple, and she went to the center to thaw the egg to the embryo transfer. But her ex-husband didn't want to. He didn't want to have part of him in her with another couple. So they went to justice. They resort to justice. And this is a moral dilemma. This is so graphic. The judge decided to choose life, and they decided to give the woman the right to implant the embryo. Do you see now what are the modern dilemmas now in 20th century? And it happens with these advancements in medical treatment. So So bioethics was introduced as a discipline in university curricula. For example, in my case, in UMSA and in another university, UCA, initially in medical studies and more recently in nursing and other health profession. Now we have representative and authors in Colombia, Chile, Mexico, Argentina, and Brazil, among others. For example, some of the publications, Cuadernos de Bioética, Notes about Bioethics, Vida y Ética and Bioética, Medical Journals of Medicine and Ethics, and Soma Bioethical. En Colombia, Persona en Bioética, Bioética, Selecciones a Revista Latinoamericana, Acta Bioética en Chile, Brazilian Journal of Bioética, etc. Some authors, American and European authors, Van Rensselaer Potter, Art Kaplan, Millie Solomon, Jim Childress, Dan Bouchon, Tom Murray, Ruth Faden, Andre Heligos. And Latin American authors, Antonio Llano, Diego Gracia Guillén in Chile, Fernando Lolas, José Alberto Mainetti in Argentina, a great author who sadly passed away last November, a great loss. Fernando Sánchez Torres, Guillermo Hoyos, José Jorge Ferrer, Armando Pérez Nucci, Agustín García Banderas, and Miguel Tondo. These are part of the authors that we must have here in this century. So, okay. And thank you very much. Thank you very much. You can, if you have any doubts, you can find me there, LinkedIn, on Instagram. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria Victoria, and very interesting and very different and intellectually challenging. If there are any questions from the public. No.
It was all clear, or it was not understood at all?
Probably. All of the answers are
okay. Okay.
No, but by the way, we have a similar issue to the story that you said with fallen soldiers, that sometimes the family wants to keep eggs from soldiers, and it's a terrible dilemma. And again,
terrible dilemma. I agree with you. Yes.
In a dilemma, there is no good answer. All answers are bad, and you have to choose not the better one, but the less worth
exactly
one, and it's the
less harmful in some ways. Yes, yes, for life, as the case of the embryo.
And you did it on time, which leaves us 10 minutes this time to refill cups, bio breaks, etc. So go ahead, and we'll see you again in 10 minutes. Maria Victoria, thank you so much. And again, hope to see you next year here.
I hope so.
And remember, at least one trip in Jerusalem on me.
Okay, I'm thrilled to. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, colleagues. Bye-bye.
Thank you.